Hi there, everybody. Well, unlike most of these videos, this one might actually get a little bit more production values to it, as I don't know how I could tell you about my eclipse adventure without showing you some pictures along the way. But if I forget, you can find them on Twitter, Instagram, my usual linked accounts. So everybody has an eclipse story, but I think the big difference between the people who really enjoyed the eclipse, who really were like blown away by it, and those who are like, it was okay, is where you were located. Not just the cloud cover, but primarily if you were in the line of totality or not. The way I explained it to my kids, who both just happen to be living right now in the totality zone, was that the difference is like if you're on a bright sunny day and you're standing out in the front yard, which doesn't have a lot of trees, versus if you're standing in our backyard, which has shade trees. And that really is it. It's a very different world when you're in the shade on a bright day than if you're standing out in the direct sun. And the line of totality, you're either in it or you're not. And if you have 97% totality, which I think is what Pittsburgh was rated at as a metro area, it is a completely different experience than if you're at 100% of the eclipse. So that said, from where I work, and I usually get off about 1 o'clock, and I'm near the city, I'm within sight of downtown Pittsburgh. For me to get to the line of totality, which cut across northwestern Pennsylvania, kind of diagonally from Youngstown and all north of I-80. It was a not inconsiderable drive from my house, which is in Wexford, which is also north of the city. So I'm kind of already headed that direction when I leave work, as I am now. But and I had time to make that drive and to be where the total eclipse was going to occur sometime around 3:20 in the afternoon. So I had to kind of decide where I was going to go. But we also had an accident that happened, I don't know, probably mid-morning on I-79, which is the primary highway north out of Pittsburgh. And I was watching the PennDOT traffic cameras for a lot of the midday there and just watching the traffic get more and more backed up. So I knew that if I tried to go up 79, I was going to end up behind a lot of traffic. And if you get across the line of totality but are in your car, you miss it anyway. So my initial goal was to get to Meadville, Pennsylvania, because I figured that was far enough into the line, over the line, that I would get the full experience, but not so far that I couldn't get there in the amount of time that I had, even if there was a little bit of traffic. There wasn't time when there's a lot of traffic. And then combined with the cloud radar forecast that I was watching, I had a cloud radar running on my phone. I had the Tesla screen, of course, shows me all the traffic, where things are backed up and where they're not. And I had an iPad with me that had a very detailed, granular map of where the line of totality was, so that I could kind of correlate where I needed to get to be in that shadow, and where there wouldn't be clouds blocking the best observation of the event. And of course, traffic that would be in the way of me getting there. I also had running on the Tesla nav as I was keeping an eye on the supercharger stations, because it didn't fully charge the car the night before. So I knew that I would need to get, or I didn't necessarily have to, but I would probably want to grab a little bit of extra juice somewhere on the trip in case I ran into traffic on the way home. Because of course everybody's running up there at different times of the day. The event happens and everybody goes back at the same time. So it's kind of like everybody leaving a football game. You know, some might come to tailgate and some might come, right at kickoff. But when the game is over, everybody leaves at the same time. So I had to allow for, I might need extra charge to sit comfortably in my car in traffic and not be constantly looking at my charge remaining. So combine all those things and seeing the wait times that were escalating at most of the superchargers in the area I was looking, and there aren't any north of Grove City, Pennsylvania, or north of I-80, because Grove City is the last one on 79. The next one on 79 is in Erie, and I wasn't going that far. And Grove City is a very tight supercharger. It's near a factory outlet. It's at a sheet station. It's always very busy. So what I ended up combining all of those things and looking at the time I had, and I stopped a few times to check, make sure I was, all my screens to make sure I had the right plan. I ended up leaving Pittsburgh on the turnpike and heading west, and then going north on 376, which is also a toll road, and then getting off in Hermitage. There's a supercharger at the Sheets in Hermitage, which is almost never really used very much. I know that because my parents live near there. And so when I stopped there, there was one other car charging, and then it left, and then another car came before I left. So in the time I was there, which was probably about 10 minutes, I didn't pick up much of a charge, just enough to, give me some comfort. That's 3 cars. And this was probably, by the time I rolled into there, I didn't really hit any traffic on the way up, except for a little bit leaving my house to get to the turnpike, which I got on in Cranberry. I want to say it was I think I rolled out of the supercharger right around 3 o'clock, maybe a little before 3 o'clock. And the line of Totality in that part of Pennsylvania is basically the northern shore of the Shenango Lake, which is a reservoir. And my parents live on the southern shore they're not home, but they lived on the southern shore of the reservoir. So that was where I needed to get to, I needed to get across that reservoir somewhere on the other side of Shenango Lake. And I found a spot and compared it with the cloud forecast. And it was covered with clouds when I first rolled in, but I'm watching how the clouds are moving. It's I think I'm going to get a hole of clear sky when I need it. And that's literally how things worked out. I pulled in, and there were, I think, 3 or 4 other cars in this little gravel turnoff of access road there by the causeway, and made some fast friends. Much as you can, strangers hanging out with weird glasses on your face. And I'm looking up, and I'm like, yeah, we're getting there. And it was fantastic. The sky was blue, and then everything goes super dark, and there's sunset, 360 degrees, or I guess sunrise type colors one side, but it's sort of like being in a sunset. You can literally see the edges all around you of where the light is leaking through. And it had about 2 minutes, a little over 2 minutes, I think, of total eclipse there, totality. And it was amazing, I have to say. The best part of it is being able to take off those crazy glasses, like these crazy glasses, and look at the sky during the full eclipse with your bare eyes, and it's just the most amazing night sky in the middle of the day, and that sparkling dancing ring of fire around the outside silhouette of the moon was just fantastic. And you don't get that if you're not somewhere that has that totality. It's just very different. And then, of course, the least little sliver of the sun comes through, and everything lights up again. I mean, even at 99% totality, you've got daylight all day long, and it's an interesting effect, but it is not the same. So anyway, I did that, and then we all kind of left, and I made my way back. I came down south on 376, and then cut across on 422 to the east, and then jumped on 79. I'm watching the traffic. I can see everybody from Erie is starting to come down. It's all jammed up north of I-80. But if I can turn that corner, A, I don't have to pay the $3 to go on the toll road, and B, I'll get home and within 5 minutes of if I paid the $3. So why not go for free? So I hooked that corner and made it home. Pretty light traffic the whole way home. The only time, and we were probably cruising, typical interstate speeds, 70 miles an hour or so, except for when there were state troopers randomly sitting on the aprons of the on-ramps with their lights flashing. Now, I had Waze on just because I always run Waze when I'm on the highway, because people do weird things when they see state troopers, and I like to kind of know why people are going to do weird things, especially if I can see before they do them, stomping on the brakes. So I could see that we were coming up on what were indicated as speed traps, but they were just officers just sitting but with the lights going. So they're 2 or 3 feet away from the edge of the lane, which means everybody has to move over to the other lane, because there's a law that you have to move over when they're sitting on the side of the road with the lights on. and that combined with everybody stomping on their brakes and trying to cut across into the other lane, those were really the only hazards I saw with the state troopers. Ironically, the state troopers were supposed to be out there to keep people from stopping on the side of the road because it would be dangerous. And the only people causing the danger were the state troopers, because everybody has to stomp on the brakes and move over and jam into one lane. It's just a combination of things happening, and a lot of the times happening around blind corners and, you know, hill crests, whatever. So anyway, I made it home without really any traffic, although I heard other people took 6 hours to get from Erie to Pittsburgh again. And just a really nice day out. And of course, just really enjoyed my time. I wish I could have been with my family, but my kids are in 2 different states and my wife was working. And so it just is what it is. But highly recommended. Put it on your calendar. If you can get to line of totality before the next eclipse, it really is a completely different experience. It really is totally different. And anybody who is in an area of totality can tell you that 99% is not the same as 100. It's a really big difference. So I hope those of you who are able to enjoy the blue skies really soaked that in. It's going to be a long time till this kind of thing happens again. All right, thanks for watching. See you out there.